All right, so we're going to talk about the rules for counting significant figures. So the first rule is that anything that is not a zero is going to be considered significant. This means that if it's any number 1 through 9, it counts as a measured digit, therefore it is a significant figure. So that's the first rule. The second is that all zeros that come between non-zero digits are significant. So if I have a number like this, 4006, these two zeros in the middle here are both considered significant figures because they come between. Next, any leading zeros are never significant. This means that if you have a number like this, 0.0006, all of these zeros here in the front are not considered significant figures, so the only sig fig is this 6 right here on the end. This number has one significant digit. And then finally, trailing zeros are only significant if there is a decimal point in the number. So I'm going to have two numbers here. I'm going to have 100 and 100.0. Now to you, these might be considered the same number, but in reality, this number is showing us that the scale or the instrument that was used to measure this number is much more precise than this one right here. This one only has one significant figure, while this one over here has 4 significant figures, all because of this decimal point. So then we're going to come over here and I'm going to have you guys practice counting significant figures. So if you would like to pause the video now, go ahead and pause it and see if you can count the sig figs in each of these numbers down here, and I will come back with you and we'll count them together. All right, so this first number right here, there are 3 numbers total. We're on this 200 right here. This little 2 is significant because it's not a 0. So now we have to decide if these zeros here and here are significant. Now remember, trailing zeros are only significant if there is a decimal. So you have to have a decimal, and this number does not have a decimal, so this only has one significant figure. This one right here, 3047. We know that this, and this are all going to be considered significant, but what about the 0? It's always about the zeros with these. So the 0 here is significant because it is sandwiched. You always want to see if something is going to be sandwiched between two other non-zero digits, and so for this, we have 4 significant figures. All right, let's look at this one right here. This one has leading zeros. Leading zeros, remember, come in the front, and front leading zeros are never ever considered significant, meaning that we only have one significant figure here. On this one, we have sandwiched zeros again. Whenever we have sandwiched zeros, they count. So we're over here with 4 sig figs. On this one, we have trailing zeros. Now, trailing zeros are the ones that are tricky. Trailing zeros only count if there's a decimal. So all of those ones count because of this decimal right here. We have 4 significant figures. This one's a little tricky. This one throws you guys off because of the decimal, but the decimal is there and there's nothing in this space right next to it. So what's the deal? Well, sometimes you absolutely can only have 3 significant figures, but if you don't include the decimal, you're only going to have 1. But if you include the decimal and add a 0, you're going to have 4. So in order to keep 3 sig figs, we put a decimal there and we just leave it like that. So that's 3 sig figs. This one here, there are no zeros at all. We can count all of those. They're 5 sig figs. The last one here is this number, which is in scientific notation. This number right here is the same as if you were writing 5, and then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, fill in all of our zeros. That's 50,000. But sometimes you don't want to have to write all of those if we're writing in scientific notation. You ignore all of this and just count the sig figs right here. So for this number right here, we have 1 significant figure.